Big spoilers for Elbaf ahead. However, during the events of Elbaf, we are introduced to a very interesting holy knight, Saint Remo Shifu Killingham, who is a dream manifesting human thanks to the powers of the mythical Zoan fruit known as the Dragon Fruit model Kirin. So, the reason why he is possibly the most important character so far in this arc is because his abilities lend to actual powers, presumably, that could exist out in the One Piece world. Because his abilities allow him to manifest the dreams of the people in the surrounding area into creatures known as MMA, but are usually just referred to as nightmare creatures. So, of the named nightmare creatures we have seen, a few of them have actually become real devil fruit abilities in the course of the arc, namely the Nidhogg, which we did call before it happened, because the Nidhogg nightmare creature is a black dragon that is able to breathe lightning. We later find out that this is actually a real devil fruit. It is actually the creme de la creme of devil fruits in Elbaf, because Loki, the Prince of Elbaf, gets this ability in the past after his father urges him to do so, and we see him actually eat the fruit. So he is the user of the mythical dragon fruit model Nidhogg, and like the nightmare creature before him, he too can breathe lightning. So with that being said, I'm suggesting that the nightmare creatures created by Remo Shifu Killingham are all presumably foreshadows to devil fruit abilities that may exist out in the One Piece world, at least those that are named. Some have already been revealed to be powers or possible entities that are already in existence. For example, the Storm nightmare creature most likely is just a reference to Zeus, as the people of Elbaf know who Zeus is, thanks to the fear instilled in them by Big Mom. But we have a Draugr. A Draugr could just be what Brook is, and there's actually a very funny joke that Brook makes about the Draugr, saying that it's just a giant version of him. So he literally could just be the Draugr in this case, or there could be a human fruit mythical model Draugr out there, because thanks to the Five Elders member Ethan Baron V. Nosjuro, we know that there are devil fruits, presumably, that can turn you into skeletal beings. So there could be a mythical human fruit out there that just turns you into a Norse skeleton, I guess, which is very funny. But to continue, we talked about the Nidhogg. We know Nika exists. We know Loki's a real guy, but we come to the last few. Jormungandr is this giant snake entity that Killingham makes. So maybe out there in the world, there is a mythical snake fruit model Jormungandr that turns its user into a giant snake very similar to the nightmare creature. Another is Fenrir, which is a giant wolf. But we know Fenrir is a creature from Norse mythology, so perhaps there is a dog fruit mythical model Fenrir out there in the world. Even though we do have a Cerberus fruit, presumably, in the form of Figlin Shamrock Sword, I still could believe that there's a Fenrir fruit out there in the world, because there aren't too many mythical dog fruits. It's quite literally Cerberus himself, presumably, and then Yamato's fruit. So I think that's a very high possibility. Then, of course, we have demons. Well, thanks to the powers of Emu's fruit and presumably Emu themselves, there is a demon fruit that can create demons out there. So that's a known quantity. But that brings us to a very interesting one, which I think lends in more to a little more about Oda himself than anything else. We have the Lindworm. Now, for a while now, I have been talking about how Oda might be taking inspiration from D&D and how he's very specific in how his draconic entities are being represented in One Piece. Of the draconic entities that I cite, meaning a drake or a amphitheater or a wyvern, and how we've had those entities in One Piece, and seeing as how Loki's devil fruit is the first devil fruit that literally turns its user into a traditional dragon, I often show this chart that does display what a lindworm is. A lindworm is a draconic creature that has one set of limbs, but is otherwise like a snake. So the fact that we're seeing this in One Piece in the form of a nightmare creature means that Oda is working on D&D rules more or less. And he does take very, very specific notice of what is very much a dragon traditionally, meaning 4 limbs and a set of wings, whereas what is not a dragon. So like in the case of Kaido or Momonosuke, in which they're just a long drake, a draconic creature with 4 limbs and no wings. Or when you look at most of the dinosaur fruits in One Piece, or Killingham himself, seeing as how he is a Kirin, and a Kirin is a part of the dragon fruit family in One Piece. The majority of them, say for King's fruit, whom is a wyvern, the rest of them are just drakes. So X-Drake becomes a drake and being an Allosaurus. So the fact that we have a lindworm here, it, like how it traditionally is a long snake-like creature with one set of limbs. So that's why I think Remo Shifu Killingham has been very important in displaying what is presumably out there in the world and what we might see in the future in One Piece, because it's very likely that every creature he has made, that has been named at least, is a real devil fruit power somewhere out there. But with that being said, if you are enjoying the content so far, hit the like button, and if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button, followed by that bell so you never miss a video. And if you could you please hit the hype button, because it does help somehow. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Wax.